Hello, everyone. Welcome to Development Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis, coming to you from the Ventura Cigar Company studio, and with me today is John McTavish. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, although I have no clue what day of the week it is, or probably even what month it is.
That's okay. You got a couple. You'll have a few days to catch up on
Yeah.
what's going on. So today we are talking about the Upmann Connecticut by Grupo de Maestros Toro. Cigar, 6-inch by 50 ring gauge, comes out of the Tabacalera de Garcia factory in the Dominican Republic. Wrapper is Ecuadorian Connecticut. Binders from the Dominican Republic. Filler is from Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic. Blended, obviously, by the Grupo de Maestros. Price point is $8.60, and cigar was released in October of 2018. So with all that out of the way, John, what was your smoking experience like?
Well, I can tell you based on my last week that I think this cigar has some oral filler in it. The first third was really interesting. It started out with baking spices, cedar, some little bit of light pepper, and not enough that it overwhelms what you would look at and think is a Connecticut blend, but enough that it made it more interesting than sort of a typical Connecticut for me. Interestingly enough, the pepper sort of right away had a really long finish on the tip of my tongue, and then that built up really fast to a medium full. So it kind of like went way outside of the scope of where I thought the cigar was going to go. And then, and the other thing, and I don't know if you had this in your review sample, but like this thing is putting out the level of smoke that is usually reserved for one particular company that everyone likes to pick on in the
Right.
marketplace and say they're doing something with the wrapper. Like, like my entire patio was covered in smoke, and I was like, "Is my hand on fire here?"
Right.
Because like I've never seen a cigar with this light of a wrapper put out this much smoke. Anyways, I wanted to mention it because it was like a profound amount of smoke. And then got a little bit of cocoa as the first third continued. It was interesting, creamy nuttiness. Very enjoyable first third. I was like, okay, this is not what I expected. I'm really enjoying myself. And then unfortunately, middle third kind of tanked for me, and I do mean tanked because immediately some mild char going into the middle third, kind of lingering on my tongue, lingering on the post draw. Really not a pleasant flavor. The char did go out after I kind of purged it 3 or 4 times, but there wasn't really a flavor that replaced it. It was just kind of, some generic tobacco notes and some generic vegetal notes, which, unfortunately, it was pretty average experience in the middle third. The last third kind of came back, but in a different way. It kind of fell into that classic Connecticut profile of hay and grassiness, which is all right, but not what I was kind of expecting based on where the first third was going. And then some mild woody notes. Getting into burn and construction, burn was pretty straight. Canoed at the end of the first third, so I had to touch that up. I let it go, thinking it would correct, but it ended up having to get a touch up, and then went out completely in the middle third, which was after the char issues, so it's kind of curious. So I relit, and then no issues in the last third or the remainder of the middle third. So I rated the burn and construction as good. Normally I rate a little bit more aggressively if the cigar actually goes out versus if it just needs a touch up.
Mhm.
And then in terms of draw, about a half spectrum or a half notch into the tight spectrum, but like, that's really well within the ideal zone of draw. And, I just remark on it just so that we've got a comment there. But I
Right.
mean, I'd have to be pretty anal to complain about that kind of draw. What was your experience like overall?
Yeah, for me, I had wood with kind of an interesting musty cinnamon note, and then about a half-inch in, all those components were kind of at equal levels with each other. Retro Ale had the cinnamon with a kind of a slight lead over the musty wood note, and then about an inch in, a little bit of hay joins the mix. A little further in, the cinnamon becomes very faint. Profile was a little bit drying with the wood, the mustiness, and the hay all at equal levels. Strength was kind of slightly below medium. Second, third, musty wood, hay, a little bit of cinnamon still in the background, a little bit of cream joins in about half-inch in, and then further in, the wood's up front, a musty hay right behind it, still a little bit of faint cream remaining in the background. Profile still a little bit drying. Retro Hale's got the same profile to it. No real changes, as that second third wraps up. Strength stays at that slightly below medium mark. And then the final third, the wood gains a little bit of char. Hay and mustiness are still right behind that. Profile still a little bit dry. About 3/4 of an inch in, the cream starts to pick up a little bit, knocks out most of the dryness. Retrohale is still in that musty oak note. And as the cigar's wrapping up, the wood becomes a little bit more defined as oak. Cream still continues to increase, becomes a little bit even with the oak and the mustiness. Strength bumps up to medium. And then in regards to construction, for me, the burn was razor sharp the entire way. Ash held on an inch and a half increments. I had no issues with that whatsoever. And then in regards to the draw, it was just a little bit tighter than I prefer, but it didn't cause any issues with the smoking experience. So overall, John, what were your thoughts on this one?
I would say this is sort of my what I would define exactly as an average cigar. Started out promising the first third. I was really hoping that was kind of how it was going to continue, but unfortunately, not a lot of complexity at all in the second third. And the last third was, really typical Connecticut profile, which in the current marketplace, I think is not going to be enough to score above an average score for me. What about you? What was your overall experience like?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, it's a pretty typical Connecticut shade offering. Maybe a little bit more strength there. Um, right around medium and below. A little bit drying profile, things like that. Like I said, even though it's pretty typical of other Connecticut's, price point is pretty attractive on this. It's 860 for a Toro.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good. I'd smoke more of these, I think, if they were around, but I'm not gonna target this if I'm in the mood for a Connecticut shade. This just isn't gonna. There's not enough here to draw me into it. There's a bunch of other ones that are at equal or better level than this. So,
although we really don't talk about the prelate anymore, but it's a very good. It's a very good looking cigar. It's got some interesting complications with that the Rosado wrapper on the cap, and the band is pretty elegant. So like in terms of packaging, they didn't knock it out of the park, but they check a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why this cigar wouldn't do well for their customers. I mean, this is right in the ballpark for their customers. Price point's probably a bit more attractive than some of the other offerings, so maybe even does better.
Yeah.
So they sell a ton of cigars. Like, we're talking flavor focus. We're not saying this is gonna be what's the best on the market and all that stuff. That's what's for other people to decide. But I think it does. I think it'll do perfectly well for them. It's just not going to be something that some of us are going to kind of gravitate towards.
It's not going to be on any top list, but they're still going to sell tens of thousands of these. So at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to be crying about it. So
yep. So we'll get into the scores. You were the top with a 5.90, and I was right behind you with a 5.60. So I think that matched up.
That seems way high to me. So I mean, I guess that just goes to show you how much that first third impacted the overall score.
Right.
And I guess reflecting on that, I think in my mind it was like a 5.15, but I suppose that first third was good, and I mean it was really good. Like that was headed in the direction that I was pretty excited for. So thinking about it, I suppose that does match. Although for me, I'm thinking more along the 5.35. What was your score?
5.6. So I was
average. For you?
I was average all the way through. Just had really good construction, man. So it's that's where it gets a little bump. But right mid fives is right where I would put this cigar. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing great about it.
Yeah, I feel like I must have had a poor sample because looking at how much care and consideration was giving into the look of the cigar and how nice the wrapper and the cap and everything, I think I must have just got a poor sample because I just can't see this being a poorly constructed cigar.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. All right, if you're just catching this video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us. But also check out the full written review on the website, developingpalates.com. Follow us on all the social media channels, and you can catch all of our review recaps on podcast. So iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, Upmann.